To change the BreakTimer settings, begin by bringing the Tools menu up and select Settings. Select the BreakTimer tab, and here you can view an overview of your current BreakTimer settings. To change your settings, click Adjust Settings in the top right corner. Now you'll be presented with a number of tabs to let you change the various aspects of the BreakTimer. To adjust break timing itself, you can adjust how long you want your average break length to be, and you can set an average break frequency. If you want breaks to be extra sensitive to mousing or typing activity, you can check these checkboxes. But keep in mind that the break reminder is always considering your typing and mousing activity. This is only if you want it to be extra sensitive to one of those. For example, if you have discomfort associated with that. Now, breaks in general are timed based on your activity, but you can also specify a minimum and a maximum time between breaks. So for example, if I specify a minimum time of 15 minutes, my breaks will never be more often than once every 15 minutes. And if I specify a maximum time of 60 minutes, then my breaks will never be more than an hour apart. However, there is an exception to that rule. If you take a long break on your own, or a long natural break, then RSIGuard will reset the timer. If you want to prevent that from happening, you can click this checkbox here. In this case, a break will occur at least once every 60 minutes, no matter what, even if you're completely inactive on the computer. Finally, you can specify that you want a break to be at least a certain length of time. Normally the length of time is based on how much you've been using the computer. But for example, if you wanted to always make sure that you had a break be at least 5 minutes, you could specify that here. Moving on to the interaction style of breaks, these settings control how the BreakTimer interacts with you. When it's time for a break, wait to start the break, and your choices are until you've been inactive on the keyboard for a few seconds. And what this does is it makes it so that the break doesn't pop up in the middle of you typing a sentence or in the middle of you doing something. It'll wait until you've paused on your own for a few seconds. Or alternately, you can have it present you with a break needed button, which you have to click in order to start your break. However, if you have this checkbox set, then after waiting for you to start the break, in this case for 60 seconds, it'll start the break anyway. In other words, the break needed button makes it so that you won't be interrupted unless you start the break on your own. But if you have this checkbox checked, then eventually it will interrupt you. Setting your willpower to respect break time defines how easy it is for you to postpone and skip breaks. If you say that you have high willpower, then RSIGuard will make it very easy for you to exit the BreakTimer when a break is presented to you. And by contrast, if you specify very low willpower, then it will be very difficult for you to skip a break or postpone a break. You can ask that RSIGuard play a tone right before a break starts. That's nice because it lets you know about a minute or so before a break is coming that it's about to present you with a break. That helps you prepare. You can also ask to play a tone after the break ends. In that case, when a break ends, you'll hear a sound that lets you know that it's okay to come back to your computer to work, so you don't have to pay attention to the break window. You can also hide the screen during breaks, and basically that will gray out all of what's on your screen so that you're not tempted to look at documents or emails or notifications that are popping up. This can make it easier to comply with completing a break. You can also have the skipped break wizard be enabled, and what this does is it notices if you're postponing and skipping breaks a lot, and if you are, it offers you some options for making the break timer fit into your situation better. The Stretches and Videos tab lets you specify which videos you want to see during breaks. By default, what you'll see are 31 different stretches that are preloaded with RSIGuard. However, you can add your own videos from a YouTube channel by clicking the Browse Online Videos button up here. If you don't see that button, your organization may have removed that, in most cases because you don't have access to YouTube. If you have a work restriction, or if you simply want to restrict your time on the computer or your activity on the computer, you can specify a work restriction. There are a variety of different types of work restrictions that RSIGuard supports. One of the most common is the minute-by-minute restriction. And here you can say, I want to restrict myself to a certain amount of time. In this example, 45 minutes of activity per hour. And that means that if I work for 45 minutes, I'm going to get a 15-minute break to make sure that I get to 60 minutes with only 45 minutes of activity. And that's what this warning is telling me. I can also set up a work restriction that's based on how many keystrokes I do or how many mouse clicks I do. And I can also have a work restriction that's based on time on the computer. So for example, here I'm limiting myself to 4 hours of activity per day. And I could also have a variable length work restriction. These work restrictions let me specify different lengths of time based on the day of the week, or different lengths of time based on how hard I've been working in the preceding days. Let's go back to the example of a fixed length work restriction where I'm limiting myself to 4 hours per day. If I check this checkbox, then it will actually limit me not to exactly 4 hours of work, but to the amount of activity that I typically do in 4 hours. So if I work more intensely one day, it may limit me to 3 hours that day. And if I have a light day of work, it might let me go for 5 hours before it tries to tell me it's time to stop. The break reminder will let me specify particular times that I want a break to occur. So for example, if every day I want a break to occur at this particular time, I can add that. Maybe I also want a break to occur at 4:30. And now I have 2 scheduled breaks. I can also specify a break blackout time. So between 10 a.m. and noon, I will not receive any breaks. Finally, the filters feature allows me to specify rules that will block breaks. And this is intended to make the break reminder be non-interrupting when you can't be interrupted. So for example, for default, you'll see that there are 5 prepackaged rules. When you're doing a PowerPoint slideshow, so you're presenting something, when you're viewing a video, if you're using a variety of meeting software, you may not want to be interrupted, and these rules disable the break timer when those things are happening. You can specify rules yourself by using these fields here and then pressing the Add button. You can also make more sophisticated rules using RSIGuard's RSIScript tool. That's an overview of how you set up the break reminder. For most people, the most common thing that you'll be adjusting will be the break timing section, but be sure to think about whether or not these other sections are important to you as well. Thanks for watching.